In this lesson, we're going to learn how to refine our matte passes by adding in our reflection matte, which will reintroduce some of our hair detail into the alpha. So here's where we left off, and we're currently using this blurred alpha to soften these edges on the bottom, which I really like, but we lose some of the hair detail on the bottom while we're doing this, and I really want to avoid losing detail if I can. So the next thing we want to find out is, do we have this detail inside of any of our passes? And if we look closely at our reflection matte alpha, let's jump to the alpha channel here, we have all of our hair detail inside of this pass. And that was actually sort of just a lucky coincidence that the majority of the neck geometry was behind our reflection pass, but our hair detail was in front. So let's now take a look at how we can reintroduce this into our alpha combined composition to fix this issue. So let's begin by jumping into our alpha combined mask, or pre-comp, and let's drag the reflection matte down here into our main timeline. So again, we're going to need to set the alpha channel of this layer. So let's go to our alpha mask, jump to the controls, or the effect controls. Let's just copy our set channels here and paste them onto our reflection matte. Now, since this is going to fill up our alpha channel, what's going to happen is everything behind this is going to disappear. So what let's do is let's use a blending mode to combine the brightest parts of our reflection matte with the layers below. And we really don't need soloing at this point, so we can turn those off. So let's use something like a lighter color blend mode. What that does is it simply looks at which color is brighter, and then it will use that color in the final comp. Now you can see here that part of our reflection matte is down here on the bottom, and we definitely want to avoid having that inside of our composition. So let's see, this mask we created before probably won't do the job for us, so let's actually just jump in and create a new mask. So I'm going to solo this layer, and I'm just going to grab my pen tool, and let's draw out a pretty tight mask to keep our hair details but remove these neck details. So, I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect, but let's try and get this pretty close. Now let's hit the M key and change this to a subtract type to remove that area, and then hit the F key and let's introduce a bit of a feather here. Maybe not quite that large, but maybe something small like a 7-pixel feather. So now let's animate this mask. Let's hit the M key again to grab our mask path, hit the stopwatch icon to keyframe, and now let's just do some quick rotoscoping. So I'm going to grab my selection arrow here, scrub forward in time, move my mask into the correct location, scrub forward, move my mask, and again I want to try and move the entire mask at the same time, and that will help us out later so that we don't get any strange interpolation issues, which often happens when we animate masks, although sometimes we may need to come in here and grab a point and move it up. That's perfectly fine. However, for the most part, we want to try and do the animation on the entire mask instead of on a point-by-point basis. And that really helps keep the mask sort of consistent. And we talk about this in quite a bit more detail in the rotoscoping courses, because this is essentially all we're doing is we're doing a quick roto job to keep our hair in and keep the rest of our body out. So as you may have noticed, I've sort of ignored that part on the left there until later, because we can simply come in here and add another shape for any areas that are causing us problems like that. So just come in and drop in a few keyframes here to cut out the bottom part of our body. Now again, we want to keep the hair, so we need to be a little careful here and there. Sometimes we have some artifacts here on the right, so let's just grab our circular mask and create a pretty large shape here. And again, let's set this to subtract. And then we'll do the exact same for this part here on the left. Again, draw out a pretty large shape and subtract. Now these two, we may need to set 1 or 2 keyframes, so let's hit the M key, and let's set a keyframe, and let's actually scrub through, and yeah, we need to move this left one just a bit, but nowhere near as many keyframes as the original. Okay, so once you have that finished, deselect, then hit the 0 key to RAM preview, and what we're looking for is any errant white pixels, and we just want this hair detail intact. Okay, great. So once you've created your mask, we can now unsolo this layer, and let me hit the U key to hide my masks again, and now you can see that we have reintroduced and kept all of our hair detail. Now we might need to come in and tweak a few of these masks in areas like this, and that's just sort of par for the course. If that happens, try and do it on a keyframe that currently exists. So this edge here is kind of sharp, so I'm going to pull that edge, or pull that point over to the left to soften out that edge a little bit. And you can see quickly it stops becoming a concern, although we always want to check our interpolation to make sure that it stays in the correct location. Okay, looking good. So if you're having trouble with any of these techniques, I again recommend the Introduction to Rotoscoping and Rotoscoping Techniques, which go through an entire course on creating and animating masks. For now, we've essentially finished off our alpha channel for our final composite. So let me just hide some of these, hit Shift 0 key on my keypad to RAM preview every other frame. And now we can see our alpha, or our edges, are looking much nicer, much softer, while we're still keeping all of that beautiful hair detail that we had left off before. Okay, great. So we're almost complete here. I think we only have a few more steps. We need to come in and sort of investigate what this little noise pattern here is on the bottom left. I'm 100% sure it's coming from our key. And we also need to do some color correction to unify our elements and make them a little bit more appealing. So I think we'll start with that, and in the next lesson we'll come in and learn how we can color correct these two elements to work together better inside this scene.